Welcome, my peeps. It's us. Again, it's Thursday. You know what that means. Coming to you live from a streaming service not so far, far away. It is Fandom Spotlite presents the Book of Boba Fett. And it is I, Broby1 Kenobi. I can't be Mace Windu today because I got my hair out. So it's the aesthetic don't work. So I'm going to be Broby1 Kenobi today. Just here with a bunch of my favorite nerf herders. We're going to dive deep into some Star Wars. But before we get started, let me introduce to my peeps. We got our neighbor with the purple lightsaber, Mr. Joseph Davis. Say hi to the people.
Thank you. Hi, how's it going, everybody? I'm very excited to talk about this episode. There is so much.
We have Darth Plagueis the Wise himself, Mr. Knowledgeable, my good buddy, Mike Campbell. Say hi to the people.
What up, everybody? If I mess up, don't drop me in a Rancor pit, okay?
Look, the lead singer of everybody's favorite band from Alderaan. She pulled the Jar Jar Binks and she disappeared for a little bit last week, but she's back. She's back. Everybody's favorite Ghostbuster, Miss Jazzy. Say hi to the people. I'm never dropping that joke.
I know you're not.
And we have a very special guest this week who I have been told is, as you can see by his background, a Star Wars superhead. Super knowledgeable, knows it all. So we're super excited. Mr. Damian Dennis, say hi to the people, Corey.
Hi, people. we'll see. Last time my Star Wars knowledge was put to the test, I failed at winning $1,000 and was very upset.
Well, when there's money on the line, it's always harder.
True.
Yeah, I came in second, but there was no prize for second.
Damien's coming out a winner today. Let's go.
Exactly. So this was episode 3. Boy, was there a lot to unpack. But as always, before we kind of get into it, just general predictions. Jazzy, would you like to start? What do you think about the episode as a whole? Because I kind of know what you're going to say.
So what I've been saying was that at least for tonight, I think that I'll end up being the resident hater. I'll be taking up Yali's position here because it's been kind of a snooze fest for me a little bit. So I mean, it's good. I'm here for Finnick though. I'm all here for Finnick.
Oh yeah, we definitely here for Finnick. Joe, saw with the hair flip, sir. And they have some contradicting points. How'd you feel about this episode?
I really enjoyed it. It is probably weaker than episode 2 in some ways, but it is arguably the most we've gotten in the present day. And it there was a lot I absolutely loved about this episode. I'm always a fan of world building, and there was a lot of that in this.
Absolutely. Mikey, how'd you feel about this episode, good buddy?
This feels like one of those ultimate setup episodes where, the plot moves along. We haven't quite gotten to all of the action, but there was enough to keep me satiated until next week. So I think we'll look back on this fondly as something that really set up a lot of plot lines.
Love to hear it. And then, Damien, I know you said that you're fresh, or you just watched the episode recently, so it's still fresh in your mind. How'd you feel about it as a whole?
I watched it twice today, and this one was actually my favorite so far until the end. That we'll talk about it when we get there. Like
we'll get there slowly, like the scene.
I really like the episode overall, and I agree. I think it's building something bigger.
So the episode starts with what I'm sure is in his contract at this point. Matt Berry opens the show again, and I don't remember the first episode, but I feel like that's every episode. He's had like the first line of dialogue, because when it does the credits and it says like in order of appearance, so like starring Matt Berry every episode. So I love it. So we kind of touched on this in pre-production. Each episode, it just seems like Boba's days are getting worse. Like each day that goes by, just some more shit's getting dumped on this man. So we start this episode off with a great cameo from Mr. Stephen Root, who's just in everything. And we'll kind of touch on him in a second, but he kind of comes in and says like, "Yo, bro, nobody respects you. Like no one, not even a one person. As the day goes by, we don't respect you even more. So you might want to get a handle on that." And then after he says like, "Yo, you a bitch for real, but I need a favor. you mind doing this for me?
Why don't you prove your worth respect?"
Yeah, exactly. So I do want to touch on Stephen Root because he is a very high level actor who's in a lot of stuff. Do we think the character, what was he, a water trader, seller?
Water merchant.
Yeah, water merchant. Do we think that it was just like a fun cameo, just like, Star Wars brings in everybody, or his character is going to have a bigger impact on this story? Mikey, why don't you start us off?
I'm feeling like we might see him as like an informant to some of the other syndicates later on, but I don't see expanding much further than that, other than the overpriced water merchant.
Gotcha. Joe, I know you started saying something. What do you think about Stephen Root's character?
I really think it's funny that Stephen Root has two roles he plays, either an absolute loser or a piece of crap. And this kind of bridged the gap between both. But I think he's at the very least going to be like integral to this show and may not make it out. Someone had to call in the guys who show up at the end, and I'm fairly certain it was him.
Absolutely. Ooh, that's a good one. Damien, what do you feel about his cameo? Just like a one-off, or he'll kind of just be around, or you think he's like he has something to do with how this story's going to play out?
It could go either way. I think it has something to do with the story playing out, but I don't think we'll see him again. He kind of seemed like he was just playing a part here to kind of let Boba know, hey, nobody respects you, and that'll be it. And then we may never see him again.
Jazzy, how do you feel about Mr. Root and his appearance? Is he coming back? Does he have a big deal? It's just kind of a cool cameo to have.
I mean, part of me says it's a cool cameo to have, but there's something that's telling me that we might see him again. But in what aspect, I'm not sure of yet.
Gotcha. So I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I do kind of want to get a feel of the pulse with these new developments that nobody respects Boba as like the crime lord. Do we have any updated predictions of how we think that the crime portion of this show is gonna end, or what direction we're going to now that he basically has no backing? Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first on this one, I guess. I'm still waiting to see Fennec just turn the tides on him and take over, honestly.
Which I'm upping my prediction to that's actually what's going to happen, because Boba's building a network of friends at his beck and call, and we keep seeing his flashbacks, and we haven't seen the flashback where he meets Fennec yet, and I'm pretty sure when we see that flashback is the episode that she's going to turn on.
Mm-hmm.
Here for
Mike,
it.
What do you think, Mike?
I'm really feeling like it's just going to be all out war in Mos Espa. I think the Pikes are going to be fighting for it, and I think the Hutts are going to let it all happen just so they can take over what's left. Can't say for sure that Fennec is going to turn. I'm just not feeling it yet as strongly as Jazz and Joe are, but I'm ready to be proven wrong. Let's put it that way.
I mean, I'm feeling it, but I hope it doesn't happen. Let me put it that way.
Yeah,
I just want to see Mulan kick butt again. That's all I'm here for. So.
Dennis, how do you feel about where all like the crime portion of the show, where it's heading now with these latest developments?
I'm in agreement with Mike. I think we're going to see an all-out war between different syndicates and families. I think the Pikes. I think I've heard you guys talk about it before on previous panels, but Crimson Dawn. That's where I think this is all going. I'm perplexed by the Hutt twins, but we'll get to that later. That one's a little perplexing to me, but I like Joe and Jazz's theory about like Fennec turning on Boba. I just don't see it happening, considering we also saw her in the Bad Batch, and kind of we saw the relationship between like her and the Kaminoans, and she was sent to go find Omega. So like I think there'll be some loyalty to Boba. Doesn't mean it doesn't get tested, but
and to be fair, I have not watched the Bad Batch, so I don't really know what happened to that.
I think if there's any sort of reason that she turns, it's that he's been given this opportunity to be the daimyo, and he just keeps making these terrible mistakes, or at least as far as she's concerned, terrible mistakes that she keeps telling him, like, don't do this, don't do this. Is like, well, I'm gonna do it. So
I'm gonna do the thing.
So at some point she's just gonna be like, you know what? F it. I'm done. I'm gonna go work for a real crime lord.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of rolling with Joe, and we had talked about it a bit. Ming-Na as an actress, just those little very subtle side eyes that she gives him, like when he does something stupid. It's like, oh, those are supposed to be noticed. Like we're supposed to be like, oh, she ain't too happy about that.
It's the non-verbal "I told you so."
Yeah, exactly. Like even her being like, yo, bro, let's eat all this food. He's like, no, I'm not hungry. She's like, bro, like what? You see the spread?
I don't want to keep lingering on this point, but have any of you considered maybe that Fennec has a similar like life debt type situation, like Chewie to Han or Jar Jar to Qui-Gon?
It is very possible, and I like that's the only reason, like the part of me, like I don't want to see it happen. That's the only reason that my brain is like it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? But like this is me examining writing and like how they're showing it. That's what I'm seeing. But
Yeah, Joe, I'm kind of with you again. Cause like I went to performance school, so it's like when I watch stuff, I do have a tendency to like look at it from like the writing standpoint, like what moves the plot forward. And sometimes I don't allow myself to just let it play out. So like those little subtle things, it's like, oh, that was done for a reason. That's here, like callback stuff and everything.
and if it was only happening in front of adversaries and like other crime lords and people outside of his palace, then I would be like, nah, this is like trying to trick the enemy into thinking she's turnable or something. But it happened like when they're eating dinner, and
Yeah,
I'm just
exactly.
kind of like, this is for us to see. And if this is them trying to fool us into thinking she's going to turn, and they're just like, nah, it was a joke all along, I'm going to be like,
Gotcha.
come on, man, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, so we talked about Stephen Root and his amazing cameo and why he was there. He was being bullied. Well, by his story, he was being bullied by some rapscallions who I'm sure are going to be divisive characters. We get introduced to who I have affectionately dubbed as the Cyborg Rangers. We get shown to them. So a group of teenage kids who have like modified their bodies with droid parts. Oh, Joe, I feel like you got a joke brewing.
Oh yeah,
let it
go.
Let it go.
They're the I have a lot of names. They're Shadowrunners for those that know the tabletop industry at all. But more importantly, they're literal cyberpunks. And
right there.
I like to call them the Swespa gang because they're swoop bikes Vespas. So
I love that. But so their introduction is kind of another seed being planted between Finnick and Boba. He was sent there to pretty much wipe them out because they've been allegedly been stealing and causing trouble, running amok, doing what android teenagers do best. And when Boba gets there, they're saying like, "Hey, we're broke. We don't have nothing to do. Like there aren't any jobs. This guy's charging $1 billion for water. What do you expect us to do other than cause trouble?" Very city.
Attorney at law stepping in to give people a second chance.
1,000%.
Once again.
Yeah, exactly. So Boba does this. He follows his new self-righteous act, and he's just like, "Hey, come work for me." And not only that, but the guy who made the initial complaint, he demands that he cuts his prices so as not to raise the crime rate in his neighborhood. Gentrification at its best. So Boba gets kind of a new squad with very shiny, beautiful bikes. I kind of want to get everyone's takes on the colors because a lot of the fanfare or complaints that I've seen is, and we kind of talked about it again. And Mike, I'll let you go first because you kind of said it. A lot of people are saying like, "Yo, these bright colors, this isn't Star Wars. Like, what are we doing here?" Go ahead, Mike. You can start. So, how do you feel about the color of Vespas?
So, while you may feel that it is not Star Wars, have you ever thought that maybe it's just not Tatooine? It's very Star Wars. George Lucas loves his references to the 70s, 80s, 60s. Just like an American Graffiti. These bikes fit. The designs really harken back to a few designs from Rebels as well, which is nice to see. But it's always nice to kind of like Robert Rodriguez and the other showrunners are obviously taking an inspiration from George's inspirations, which is like building on the mythos of Star Wars, which is fun to see.
Yeah, Joe, I saw you were agreeing with it's not necessarily Tatooine's colors, but how do you feel about the colored bikes?
I have a theory on these kids is that they're a group of kids that were probably like the children of moisture farmers or other laborers on Tatooine, and they have big dreams of getting off this planet and going to Coruscant and being a biker gang on Coruscant.
Did they only make it to like Nar Shaddaa and they had to come back?
They never got off planet. They literally were like, we're gonna go to Mos Espa, we're gonna earn money. Like, I don't want to compare it to a show like this, but it's like Reservation Dogs, where it's like, we're gonna be a small criminal gang in this city. We're going to get money. We're going to go to California and we're going to be bigger there. And it's the same premise. Like, these kids are like, we're going to be perfect on Coruscant when we get there.
They ran into Finn's dad at the bar. I was like, "Yo, I think there's some cool things that happen on Jakku." He's like, "No one goes to Jakku." And he's like, "Oh, well, there goes our plans." But Damien, how'd you feel about like the introduction to not really introduction, but for Tatooine, like the color splash that has upset so many people for some reason?
I disagree with all those people because I love bright colors. I'm dressed in black right now, but I've got a Miami Heat Vice City jersey.
I love those.
Yeah, I've got also like a very bright green Notre Dame football jersey, so I'm all about like, the bright colors. I do agree it doesn't fit with the aesthetic of Tatooine. It seems very out of place, but I love like just that they're all these really bright, shiny colors, and then flying through the streets and doing crazy stuff. I mean, they're not going very fast.
Briskly shuffling
Yes.
through the streets.
They're hovering through the streets.
I could run faster than those bikes, though.
Yeah.
But
Guys, they tried their best, okay?
something I had a thought though while watching, and this is a little off topic, but with those cyborg teens, as you call them, I'm wondering if that's tied into one of the Vader comics, because there was a guy who was making like cyborg like creatures to kind of take Vader's place, and I'm wondering if those were just kind of like the rejects, maybe, or maybe they figured out like this guy was doing this and they wanted to do the same or something.
Well, I know in like greater Star Wars lore, it's actually fairly common for people to get cybernetic implants, but usually they're like way less obtrusive looking. Like an example would be, I think his name was Forlom or something. I don't know his name. But on Empire, the dude that was Lando's like computer man. Yeah. I mean, that was just a dude with some stuff. And I mean, Luke's got the cyber arm. It's just he had rebel money, so he could afford a better looking cyber arm. But these kids are, we're rebels. I really think like you can look at them as kind of like a generational divide thing. Like the rest of Tatooine was designed by like boomers and Gen Xers and all sorts of stuff. Not trying to be, discrediting about it. But then you have the Gen Zers come in and they're like, nah, man, colored bikes and like cool stylish jackets and cyber limbs. And I'm just like, okay.
That fresh new app, Tick Tatooine.
Yeah.
Tatooine. Plot twist, they grow bitter and become the Knights of Ren.
Ooh.
Oh, I love it.
I'm all for that.
I'm here for it.
They're like, oh, fuck colors.
Make it happen.
We hate colors.
They go from Boba Borgs to Knights of Ren.
Look, book it now, Dano. So after we get the introduction of the cyberpunks, it was right there. I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't grab that one. It was sitting right there for me. We get the return of the Pike Syndicate. They didn't really go anywhere. They're in the last episode, but they show back up and they're kind of not hiking through the sand anymore. And we start to get a very intricate weave. And I said this last week, that every time that I think I know where this show is going, boy, do they throw me a curveball. So we finally get a name to the JL Taggers. We don't have to call them that anymore. They are the Kintan Striders. And we find out that the Pikes have been paying protection to them. Well, in the flashback, we find out that the Pikes are paying protection to them. So when Boba came in trying to, administer some goodwill for the Tuskens, they was just like, hey, we don't want to pay both of y'all. And Boba was just like, I'll be right back. Hold my beer. I will take care of that. So with the return there wasn't any being right back. And we called it. We said that Boba's separation from the Tuskens was probably going to have to be a very morbid one. It wasn't probably going to be like, hey, thanks for all you taught me. I'm about to go off into the world like my father before me and all that fun stuff. And we do see that the JL symbol was in all the wreckage. So my question to you guys, do we really think that the Kintan Raiders were the ones that slaughtered that village, or are they being set up? And Jazzy, we'll go to you first.
I remember this question like 2 weeks ago. I mean, just watching it, I know I said that they were. I believe I said last time that they're the ones that did it, but I want to say they're being set up this time because there's just something that not quite adds up here yet to me.
Go ahead, Joe. You got that look in your eye.
He does.
So I think they are the ones who did it, but I don't think the Pikes were honest about their link with the JLs. I'm pretty sure like the JLs aren't paying the Pike, or the JLs aren't being paid protection. That I'm pretty sure the JLs are on payroll for enforcing. So
I like that. Damien, what do you feel? Do you think that they did it, or they didn't do it, or maybe they did it at the behest of somebody else?
I really like Joe's theory there.
Same.
Because I could see that gang being on the Pike Syndicate's payroll as opposed to them being set up, just because the Pike Syndicate is so much larger than just Tatooine.
The JLs are kind of dumb.
Yeah, I mean, they have this whole spice trade and all that other lore that we've seen throughout the Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff like that. Like, I think the Pikes are kind of the mastermind behind the Tuskens being, genocided. But I think maybe that gang was the ones that actually did it.
Yeah.
The only way,
what do you feel about the wreckage?
Really, the only way I see it not playing out that way is if there was a reason why they kept showing just 4 of the swoop riders, because they've done it so much to the point where I'm just seeing them in groups of 4, and I'm like, Boba took care of them at Tashi's station. They just don't seem like they're that big of a gang. They could be, and we just haven't seen more of them. But if they aren't, then I think that the Pikes orchestrated this and were like, frame these guys. And the fact that their marking is there is for Boba to know it was them. But if Boba knows that there were only 4 of them and he got to all of them already, then that's tipping him off on where to go next.
Yeah, Mike, I'm kind of rolling with you in regards to just the logo being there. And again, it might be me being too analytical. I did go back and rewatch the episode where Boba beat them all up. I don't think there was anything in there that would have let them know that Boba was like with that tribe. Because like when they drove past the first time, they were like ducked down and hiding. And then the second time after the train, he was just like, I just feel like going and beating somebody up. And then he beat him up and left. So it's like it kind of played out in the show that, they were getting their get back because Boba beat them up. But I was just like, well, how would they have known? Like, that's a really big coincidence that the guys he just beat up in the bar stumbled on, the religious village that he's been at and did all that and then left their tag.
But we also don't know
we did this.
We also don't fully know yet that there are only literally 4 JLs. Like,
True.
they could have a camp somewhere or just be a swoop gang set up, and they just may travel in 4s.
I think that's totally a fair point. And I think it's one of those things where we're just gonna have to wait to find out. But I really don't see it playing out in any other scenario other than the 2 we presented, to be honest.
Gotcha. And then we don't have to dig too deep into this part, but I just kind of want to pick everybody's brain really quick with this one. We don't see the body of the Michonne Tusken killer or the kid. Do we think that's just Disney not wanting to be like ultra morbid, or they might have survived the attack? We can just, Joe, you can go first. You can go yes or no.
It's hard to say because at this point, like, they could wrap up the flashbacks, so like they don't need to add any more in there. It feels like if they are adding them in there, I mean, that could be some motivation as to why Boba's coming back. Is they're survived. There's the joke. There's the story about how like George Lucas originally wanted Han to have like a Wookiee wife or something like that, and this could be like them referencing that as
Chewbacca.
Like at some point Boba's like, you know what, you're my wife now, we're married, let's like, because they had a rapport, so he's married to a Tusken and they adopted this Tusken child. So
my new headcanon for this.
Yeah.
Look, Mike, do you think that they made it through, or that they just didn't want to? They just Disneyed it and didn't want to show dead women and children.
I took the burning of the small gaffy stick as the child perished in that battle. I do think that the Michonne Tusken was purposely not shown because she survived.
Yeah, Jazz, what's your take?
I mean, at first I was going to say they just Disneyed it up and didn't want to show it, but now that Michael had brought up the small burning child, I'm like, I can see that now. So I'm thinking we might see the Michonne coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah, like, then Damien, how you feeling? You think that they didn't make it, or they're like saving them for another episode, even though we have like 3 left?
I do think the Michonne warrior is going to come back. We didn't see her. I think they would have showed that if if she was gone. But I kind of the same as Mike there. I thought like the small gaffy stick and whatnot was kind of symbolizing the young Tusken. It completely blew my theory from the first 2 episodes out of the water too. I thought they were going to be like, Boba Fett's personal army in the present day, and that's out the door now. So
that actually, between you and Joe, you actually brought up a point that I wanted to bring up later, but we're here and it kind of is going along with it. It was kind of presented after last week's episode that Boba's whole thing for wanting to like take over was to like make a better way for the Tuskens. And whether that is like all the Tuskens or just his specific village, now that that tribe is essentially wiped out, Joe, you kind of hinted at it, and Dame, you kind of doubled down. It's like, what do we think his goal is now? Because it's like now they're apparently it's being played that they're gone now.
They're Batmaning it. He's making sure this never happens again.
Got it. I like that. Mike, what do you feel about his motives now?
I'm definitely on board with Joe there. It just seems like Boba wants Tatooine to be this nice and prosperous place. There are other things like in canon that feel like they're lining up. I think that there's no way Boba goes to Mos Pelgo and lets Cobb Vanth live for letting his armor get away unless there was an honorable man who is standing there behind it. And then his relationship with the Tuskens, it just kind of feels like things are really building towards this. We just haven't seen all the pieces yet.
I like that a lot. Damien, what do you feel about with the, his tribe going, and that was apparently his motive is like now, what do you think his reason for wanting to take over now is?
I actually kind of agree with Mike and Joe, but a little bit of a different take on it because we keep seeing the flashbacks to Camino from when he was a young kid. I think he's kind of still struggling with the death of Jango. And I think he's trying, because Jango Fett was never like, he was a bounty hunter, but he wasn't necessarily dishonorable, at least in the new canon anyway. And, I think he's trying to live up to his father's legacy, but also create his own. So,
well, that was also before getting linked back up with the Tuskens. That's the last time he had what he could call a family. Yeah. So, I think this whole Tusken tribe he was with was like a family replacer and made him remember the whole like, oh yeah, this is what it's like to kind of be okay with life.
Yeah, he said, I remember Friends. This is awesome.
During the Clone Wars, he was a very angry youth, but he kind of has slowly gotten over that over the years. So,
and even in his anger, it was very directed, right? Like in the Clone Wars episodes, like Boba is very reluctant to hurt anybody who's not Mace Windu. Like you can tell that his vendetta is targeted, and he struggles hurting other people, even though he's being egged on by other bounty hunters like Aura Singh. And I think Bossk is just kind of like playing a neutral role like during those episodes, but he has always kind of held on to the honor value system that his father instilled in him. And also, does anyone else think that it's weird we keep flashing back to Camino, or are we going to get like a full on like scene with young Boba, maybe like with the face technology?
We better get a full-on flashback because that's just too weird to put in without.
It's 3 episodes in a row.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a symbolism thing.
That kid has his exact same hair. Like whoever's like the back of that kid's head is, the actor that the kid the back of his head looks just like him.
Well, he's credited every episode, the original
is he really?
For young Boba, so that might be like footage they still had from some of the older movies.
I know some of it was. I don't know if that like his reflection in this.
That seemed deep faked, like when the reflection in the window and stuff and whatnot, what have you. So we'll leave the flashbacks in the flashback because now we're back in the present day, and boy, do we get a slobber knocker of a scene. We kind of get some foreshadowing, double entendre, don't ask me how, because you see this looming shadow kind of go over Boba Fett, and he's just yanked out of his spa, and we get a battle. I don't even have questions here. Let's just talk about the battle. Okay, Jazzy, you look like you're itching. You can go first.
So, in the pre-show in the group chat, I was like, you guys are gonna freaking hate me tonight because like I remember like 2 weeks ago I had said that one character looked like Star-Lord from Marvel, and now like I was having scenes of Boba Fett as freaking Deadpool, and I could not unsee it. I could not unsee it. Like that thing where he's in like the two becoming Deadpool. I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah, but we didn't get to see Tamura Morrison ass cheeks. At least we got to see Ryan Reynolds ass cheeks.
Look, he's like, yo, put me in some Daisy Dukes. I'm gonna get off this dad vibe.
It's still Disney, and that technically wasn't. So
that's fair.
Look, I can't unsee that now, so thanks.
You're very welcome.
much appreciated. But yeah, with this fight, I know Mike, we've talked about it going on, so we'll let you go first. Like, what are your thoughts on the scuffle?
Santan did all the badass Wookiee stuff that I wish that Chewbacca did every once in a while in all of the Star Wars movies he appears in.
Yes.
Literally about to turn a man into a flat foot roll up.
Yeah, let's go. He was crushing shit out of Boba. Like, it was just so intense, every aspect. Not to mention, it literally took every single one of Boba's men to take this Wookiee down.
Yeah.
The cyberpunks, all of them, both Gamorrean guards, Fennec, and also, did you guys see what he did to Boba's toe? That man's foot is broken.
Yeah, I watched that part back so many times.
He said, put the Gamorrean in the back tank. Dude, you need a back to spa for your feet.
Yeah. Yeah, my man's big toe. I was just like, are his feet naturally like this?
So, I'm just going to throw it out there. He's getting older. All of us, when we get older, what's one of the first things you buy? You buy one of those little foot soak things. It's really nice. It's a little, you just get a back to foot soaker. Yeah, totally.
That's next. That's coming up next. I love the part like where they started jumping him, and he was just like, "Yo, how can I escape but still cause damage?" And he like tackled the guys down the steps to get away. He's like maximum efficiency.
Chrysanthemum with the clothesline.
So I thought,
Efforts.
What were you going to say, Damien?
I was just gonna say I thought the fight was really fun. I liked the way it ended. I would have wished he would have threw around the cyborg teams a bit more. I feel like they're just not skilled enough to take on this gladiator Wookiee. But I'm also, the thing that keeps coming back to me is how the hell does Black Chrysanthemum sneak into Boba's palace and pull him out of his back to tank?
Oh yeah, I've asked that as well, because getting past the cyberpunks, understandable. They're inexperienced street punks.
Getting past Fennec though.
Fennec, and to a lesser extent the Gamorreans, because they're Gamorrean guards. They've been doing this for a living practically their whole life. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm like, was Shand sleeping?
Right. And nobody sneaks past Jackie Daytona. Like, how do you get past him?
Don't do that. He's a regular.
Too good. Come on.
He's a regular droid bounty hunter. He's not some.
Absolutely. But yeah, no, I love the fight. I like my man had like the sparkling brass knucks. I do call bullshit that Boba took that to the face. It was cool. The sparking brass knucks to the face.
The fact that he wasn't out cold afterwards is the unbelievable part.
Yeah, that was like the first punch.
All I can say is he was high on Bacta healing, and this is the same guy who survived the Sarlacc pit. So
fair.
Also very true. Did anybody else wish like when they dumped him in the pit, that was like, oh, he's gonna be like their Rancor now? I wanted that so bad.
What I thought. I wanted that. I was so angry the next scene, basically, where that's not the case.
Yeah, I was like, oh, bet. I was like, this is perfect. They didn't have a Rancor in there.
So, like what the Imperials were doing to Chewbacca at the beginning of Solo?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, it's Chewbacca on Minbin all over again.
Yeah.
I mean, they would be able to drop meals down to him, so
that's what I'm saying.
More vicious.
It would have worked out. But Damien, you did you perfectly segued us into our next scene. So we get another awesome cameo from Machete himself. Just Daniel Trejo just pulling up with Not Moochie, just more Not Moochie, just letting everybody down. And the twins, who I read a cool little it wasn't even a like a thing to read, but somebody had put a post on Instagram, and they was just like, oh, I really think the twins just want to have a threesome with Boba Fett. Like, I think that's what all this animosity's about.
I mean, what did he say whenever someone asked about the twins? He's like, they're not going to come here. They're too busy with the pleasures of Hutta. I'm like, oh my.
Not my own opinion, but are they the Lannisters of Now Hutta?
1,000%.
I was actually going to bring that. That's going to be my. Anyway, I'm proud of you. Thank you for saying that.
There we go.
Oh, guys, Jess is proud of me.
Look, we're winning. So we get more weaves, more tangled weaves, and the twins totally pull a MacGuffin. They're like, yo, all that stuff that we said first they open up with saying like, yo, we sent our mans to kill you. Sorry.
Like, our bad.
Like, we know that you know it was us, so we'll just cop to it and say sorry. And then they pull a total 180 on everything that they said the previous episodes about them wanting to take Jabba's spot. It's really theirs by birthright because we're their cousins. Like, yo, get up off our seat, and they're like, "Hey, you know what? We don't want it. Some shit's about to go down. We're getting the heck out of Dodge." Do we think that the cousin Huts are being earnest in their kind of, you know what, this isn't for us, or is this all part of a bigger plan? Joe, looks like you have a thought on this.
I have a few things. First off, we talked about the Rancor, and I want to bring up that is it just canon now that Rancors are like the pit bulls of Star Wars?
Yes,
They're generally peaceful, intelligent, and loving. They imprint on people, and apparently, like we saw how the one trainer in Jedi cried when his Rancor died. So like,
yeah, and that makes sense now.
But they're big and scary, so people are like, "I'm going to train this thing to kill." It makes sense. It's terrible. It's terrible. I now feel really bad for Rancors. But talking about the twins, I think they were being completely honest because they have no reason not to be. They are way more powerful than Boba, and they could have done way more than just send Chrysanthemum to Boba to try and kill him. They could have like hired a handful of assassins and bounty hunters. They could have like flooded the place with toxic gas. They could do so many things to try and kill Boba because they're Huts, and to them this is just a game. And at this point, because of whatever the development is, they just decided this game's not fun anymore. So they're gonna go have fun somewhere else.
I like it. Jazz, how you feeling? You think they're lying, or they're just over it at this point?
I feel like they're just over it at this point for sure. I mean, looking back at Jabba, that theory might not pan out so much if the cousins are anything like him, but for the most part, I think they're over it.
But Jabba had a foothold already. So, you know, and
good point.
And there wasn't really a lot of opposition. And at this point, they have to like work everything back up and basically rebuild the empire. They have resources.
And who's got time for that? So
they got to do their Lannister incest thing. They can't be bothered.
Absolutely. Damien, you think they're lying, or they're just kind of like, yeah, we're done with this planet?
I'm very conflicted with this whole scene overall. Seems like a very quick about face. You know, we went from Chrysanthemum trying to murder Boba to a light dinner to suddenly, you know, the Huts arriving and being like, we don't want you. We don't want your property anymore. You can have it. The gift of a Rancor kind of makes it all muddy for me, because we all know how Huts love their Rancors. They're expensive gifts, powerful like symbols, you know, for crime lords and anybody really, you know.
That Rancor is only a gift because it would have been too expensive to ship it back. That is where I stand with that. They had the Rancor with them. They had it with them because they thought they were going to just move in, take the place over, and they had their own Rancor ready to go. And they're like, "Oh, we gotta like ship it home."
They called their mom. They said, "What do you mean you canceled the Prime membership? We got to pay shipping now?" Never mind. Never mind. Leave them.
The Rancor really is the thing that throws the whole thing off for me. Like, I don't think we're done with the twins, but I have no idea like what's going on with them, and I that's kind of where my Crimson Dawn stuff comes in. But
I get to them, trust me.
I feel like if whatever this bigger threat is, quote unquote, as soon as Boba takes it out, the twins are going to be back.
The Huts are opportunists, and I think that the Rancor is being placed there so they have an angry one when they take out Boba.
I don't know if we're going to talk more about the Rancor, but
we are.
This seems like, and they know what's coming, so they're like, fine, we'll let the Pikes and the rest of the crime families that are sitting in Mos Espa duke it out, and we'll come to take back what's left. And what else? It's like planting a seed in the palace, right? You have something there that is valuable to you, and it gives Boba and the rest of them like a false sense of security that they have this new monster that they can use in their beck and call.
There's a very real possibility that the twins just may be really bad at being crime lords. Like it's like, for anyone that's seen Hotel Artemis, the wolf played by Jeff Goldblum, extremely competent crime lord, very dangerous, very intelligent, very scheming. But then his son, played by Zachary Quinto, is literally just like, I have privilege and I want to be important, but he's very bad at it. And that's kind of how I feel the twins might be, is like they've grown up in a Hutt crime family. They're like, we're dangerous criminals. Boy, you're barely even adults. Stop it.
Yeah, I'm kind of definitely Damien. I'm kind of on the side with you, like and Joe. I'm kind of in the middle with
Yeah,
everything too,
because
because it does seem like they are genuinely like, yeah, this isn't worth the trouble. Because we skipped past it, but they did make a note that when Bib Fortuna took over, that he wasn't running it like himself. He
yeah,
was like he divvied out the power, and that's kind of why a lot of people weren't really respecting Bo because like a lot of people are different and empowered now, so the twins would have to like wrangle the troops and all that. So they did give me the fact that they were kind of just, I don't want to deal with this. But that Rancor and the new world building about them imprinting did seem very convenient. Like I could totally believe that being a lie. Like, oh yeah, if he looks at you first, that's your man's. And then like later on episode, they're like, get him.
Yeah.
Cause it's like the way, cause like and them leaving Daniel Trejo's character there, like, oh, you stay here, help him train and everything. Like that little smirk he gave when Boba left, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, he'll be back." I'm like, I know they were saying like Rancors aren't violent by nature, but I'm like, if he imprinted on Boba and Boba left, like I wouldn't have felt too safe just being in there. Even though I guess he's kind of used to him, if that's been like his handler
yeah.
this whole time. But
Well,
it
plus it
did
is
seem
Danny
oddly convenient.
Trejo, so.
Yeah, very true. He's a very lovable man.
Even Rancors don't know to mess with Machete.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm sorry, was somebody saying something?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the part though that like really makes me think that we're not done with the Hutts, just because we get all this dialogue about, hey, Rancors imprint on the first human they see, and then just that look as Boba Fett leaves to go deal with the mayor, it looks sincere, but it's also a Rancor.
So I think basically what it is like the Hutts, their plan is exactly that. Like, we're gonna leave the Rancor, and then the Rancor will just be there when we come back to clean up this mess. But like that, where I also think is they may be incompetent for Hutts, and their plan isn't gonna work the way they think it's gonna work because they're dumb and rich, spoiled kids.
Yep. And then we got another thing, another gift, as it were, other than the Rancor, was the Hutt saying, like, yo, keep Black Chrysanthemum. Like, we don't want him. Like,
Yeah.
and Boba's like, I don't want him. And they're like, sell him. And he's like, I don't want to sell him.
I love Chrysanthemum's face when this is all happening. He's
just like looking back and forth.
What
like,
the?
He's like, yo, did you not see what I just did? Like, I'm that guy. He can take me with you. But do we think that is going to be another thing? Because like I feel like we're kind of all gathering to this, like, oh, this is going to be kind of like an all-out war between like the families in some way, shape, or form. Are we done with Black Chrysanthemum? Is he done? Is he moving on to the Obi-Wan series? Or is that gesture of freeing him gonna come back and it's like, oh, when Boba's down and out and Gandalf's on the hill with the riders, like trying to protect everybody? Is that what we're getting from this?
I think we had some honor among thieves there. I could see Chrysanthemum coming back, but at the same time, it would only be to help Boba because he, did him a solid. I also did some research, and Black Chrysanthemum could definitely be showing up in the Obi-Wan series as it lines up on his appearance in the Star Wars comic book from a couple of years ago. So I think if we don't see him again in Book of Boba Fett, there's a high probability we'll see him again in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
You mentioned the Kenobi connection there subtly. I think Chrysanthemum and Boba Fett have worked together before, and they've actually worked for Vader before. So like this, kind of letting him free and go do his own thing, I fully believe we'll see Chrysanthemum come back and help Boba.
Wookiees have the life debt thing, and while Chrysanthemum may not be like fully in Wookiee culture right now because he's mercenary bounty hunter type dude, it wouldn't surprise me if he's like, all right, this is a minor life debt, I'll just come help you once and then we're done. We're gonna call it solid.
Yeah, I love it. Jazz, do you think we're done with him or he's coming back?
I think he's coming back. I mean, I don't really have any predictions on how or what, but he's definitely coming back.
Gotcha. I also thought it was really cool that they like name dropped the Witches of Darthmere, because I don't remember them ever being brought up in like canon shows. But I know if you played like Fallen Order, the game, they were like a mega part of that game.
Well, they're a big deal in the Clone Wars too, aren't they?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just, I think it's live action. They haven't been mentioned yet, it's just nice to see that they're willing to reference that stuff now.
Yeah, I really was quite happy about that. because that was in the Fallen Order game. That's like one of my favorite parts. That boss battle's the worst, but I do enjoy that game. So the theme of this episode is kind of the tangled web of things that go down. And so a thing that was referenced in the flashback from the Pikes was that Tatooine was promised to another syndicate, but it wasn't really mentioned by name who it was. It was kind of like a mystery. But the twins let the cat out of the bag, well, at least their version of it, but we said that they're opportunists, so who knows who's telling the truth in this show. And they said that, hey, the mayor promised Tatooine to the Pikes. And Boba was like, oh, really? Like, very interesting. Let me go talk to this mayor. So they go to talk to the mayor. Mayor's not there. And we begin to commence with the slowest car chase in all of car chase history.
Slowest car chase since like 1994.
Yeah.
But we do get this, but we do get the Cyborg Rangers in action. And I did have to watch this show back because there were a billion Easter eggs like in this scene, which could be why they made it go so slow. Could be the reason. But what do we get our take on the race? Damien, start us off. How did you feel about this chase scene or lack thereof chase?
As much as this is my favorite episode so far of the Book of Boba Fett. I love the colorful speeders. I love the cyborg teens, which is now just what I'm going to call them forever. But that so slow. I mentioned it, and I was watching it with my wife and my daughter, and as soon as it starts, I'm like, wow, this is slow as molasses.
Horses could go faster.
I was watching it, I watched it twice today too, preparing for this, and just at the start, the Major Domo drives off, and he's going pretty quick at first, but then you see the speeders take off, and they're like,
20 miles an hour is pretty quick.
And like the camera placement and everything, it's like they're trying to show that it's supposed to be a high-speed chase, but it's not doing a good job of highlighting it. It's just so slow. I love all the Easter eggs, as you mentioned, though.
Yeah,
they were awesome. They had that lady who was in Mandalorian, like who had like the robot helpers who like helped them out on like mad stuff. I forget what her name is. But Mike, how'd you feel about the low speed chase?
Oh man, underwhelming is a understatement. But oh man, it just felt like, have you ever ridden a mountain bike in the wrong gear and you're just pedaling and it's
that's the absolute worst.
Yeah, like it was like 4 people on those chasing after someone on one of those kid like electric powered 4-wheelers. I was just like, what are other slow things we can think of? Maybe 4 snails chasing a turtle. Like, what's happening? It was just, I hate to say boring. I love the design of everything. I do think they look cool,
but
it wasn't exciting, but at least it was kind of funny. That's my only real.
True. How do you go from the high pace of a train heist scene in the previous episode to that?
Yeah.
And I'm all about like whatever you want in Star Wars. Like, I'm here for the weird, but it so maybe fast forward a little bit. Like
I would not have been able to watch that scene at all and even enjoy anything out of it if it wasn't for the weird random like moments and references. That's the only joy I took from this whole thing, because like every time, like I stopped even watching anytime the camera was focused on the car and the bikers, because it was just boring. So I was always watching. I'm like, oh, that's funny. I like that.
Yeah. Nope, that's literally how I felt. And I called bullshit on somehow her scaling a building. The time that it would take to get up there made her go faster all of a sudden.
It looks like a sniper plug went up the service rack.
Yeah, it's just like she literally was like kind of catching up to him. She was like, "Oh, I know. Obi-Wan says, let's get the high ground." I'm like,
you've played
this building.
You've played Mario Kart. You know how it works. There's little jet boosters right in front of the ramps.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
She said, "I got my mushroom ready," and she just shoved it right there.
She was ready to go, but I was just like, I feel like there's so much more obstruction up there on them roofs, the gaps between buildings, rather than just your straight shot on the ground where you were at. But before we move on, just Jazz, what was your take on the colorful slow chase?
I mean, like I said, I'm not afraid to say it. It was boring, and I mean, so obviously, I've been having a kind of a difficult time with this show so far because it kind of goes at a slow pace. But that particular scene, it was just like, oh look, there's a fly over there or something. I just kept losing interest really quick. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely I like kind of like like when you're watching something but you zone out, but you're like
yeah,
still watching
exactly.
it. I like zoned out and came back and it was like still happening. I was like, oh, this
I
scene's still going.
I do love that instead of a glass pane, they drove through a photo, like a portrait of Jabba and
Oh
like
yeah.
his palace and stuff.
It's actually
And then
original Ralph McQuarrie art that they
Yep.
used.
Nice.
So
I have to admit, I missed that because I was like, oh look, a fly. So
I think it's actually repurposed because I think in the original artwork, Luke's actually in it, but Boba himself is in that piece of art, the one that we see in the show. Jabba, Salacious Crumb, Bib Fortuna, like it's just filled with.
that's also. I'll have to go back and look and see the differences. I love that.
Yeah.
And then I also really dug the two Jizz Whalers on the little rickshaw thing with the droid pulling it, who's like spinning out trying to get it.
Yeah, that part was awesome. And then I love Back to the Future. That's like one of my favorite franchises.
Yep.
So the whole Biff crash into the cart and
Yep.
everything at the end. But we got about 10 minutes left, and I kind of want to get into this last part because I feel like it's going to cover it because there's a lot that could be here. And I promised Damien that we were going to talk about Crimson Dawn because my conspiracy theories come back here. So apparently the Pike industry, they heard Mike talking shit last week, and they was just like, oh, we're not about that action. Watch what we about to do. So the cyber teenage punk ranger, the one that looks like the Tim Drake off of the live action Titans show. That's just all I kept seeing. I was like, oh, that's the guy from Titans, but I don't think it was. He reports back to Boba and Finnick that basically the Pikes are like squad deep now. He said there was like thousands of them and just coming in and whatnot, what have you. And as we did point out last week, and Mike noted that the Pikes aren't really known to be hyper aggressive. Like if they have to fight, they will. But for the most part, they like trading spice. They don't want to fight. They'll
They got
avoid
their
fight,
niche.
but exactly. But now they're showing up kind of in droves and everything. And somebody did point it out to me that the logo that the wine sipping one was wearing, it was all off, but it did kind of resemble the Crimson Dawn circle logo. So are we saying this? Do we think that this newfound aggression, it might not necessarily have to be Crimson Dawn, are the Pikes kind of being geared up or like helped by someone, like someone saying like, yo, if you got this, we got you, like we'll help? Or are they just tired of being picked on or whatnot, what have you? Mike, you can start us off since they called the action because you were talking shit.
Yeah, I still think that I don't see the connection. I'm probably going to get proven wrong, but because I know that they've kind of made a resurgence in the War of the Bounty Hunters, which just recently concluded in the comics. But in Solo, which takes place like maybe 30 years before this at this point,
Yep.
they say that they maintain a fragile existence with the Pikes, but they're no longer a part of that shadow collective that Maul established in the Clone Wars. So the crime underworld is a small place, but I just don't see them still having that alliance. I think the Pikes are being played by the mayor at this point.
Ooh, that's an interesting take. Damien, what do you feel? As I know you wanted to get into the Crimson Dawn because I'm kind of on that train because I feel like Kira is gonna make a cameo here, whether it be Amelia herself. I forget her last name. Literally just jumped out of my brain.
Yeah.
That yes, I don't whether it's her like just kind of in prosthetics and aged up, or if they just get an older actress to play her. I do kind of feel like, and I say this all the time with Marvel stuff, they do put two things together that usually do equal something, but sometimes they just don't always pull the trigger. But I do just feel like the total shifting from their canon nature of not wanting to fight to now they're like, oh no, we're gonna take Tatooine by force and we're coming in numbers, that they are getting backed by somebody. But what's your theory, Damien?
So, obviously in Solo is where we meet Kira and, Dryden Voss dies. Kira kind of assumes that mantle, starts working with Maul. Maul dies in Rebels. We know from the comics, recent run, War of the Bounty Hunters, like Kira's in charge of Crimson Dawn. I don't know. It's really kind of like tricky to say because I feel like she would be a different kind of leader than Maul. Obviously, she doesn't have the Force or anything. Maul was a Sith Lord. But, I think she has kind of like the intelligence and kind of the charisma to kind of bring, the Pike Syndicate back into the fold and maybe kind of empower them to expand, I don't know. It's really, there's So my issue with the show, honestly, I'm gonna kind of deviate a little bit, but I've kind of agree with Jazz. Like I've been having a hard time getting into the show a lot, and I kind of realized today what it is, and we haven't really established who the villain is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just Boba Fett and all these different crime groups. I got this realization listening to Sports Talk today, of all places. But they said every great television show, it's great because it has a great villain. We don't know who the villain is yet, and we're just about halfway through the season.
I mean, you could almost say the same thing of Mandalorian, and it was still better received, so to speak, because like we didn't really know who was the bad guy until much later.
Well, but in Mandalorian, though, it was still, the Empire coming after the child. We knew that from episode 1, basically. And we didn't know about Moff Gideon until the end. But still, So, I think it's building to a bigger organization, and the Shadow Collective, Crimson Dawn, kind of encapsulates that, kind of represents that. I don't know. I'm curious to see where it's going to go. I'm really excited for where it's heading. It's just a slog to get there.
Yeah, Jazz, and I want you to go next because I know you kind of were echoing Damien's sentiment, but I kind of, it's funny because we've kind of said the same thing in the past 2 panels. Like each episode, we think we know who the big bad is, and then the following episode undoes that whole theory, and it just feels like to me, I love a good slow burn for a TV show, but for one that has 7 episodes, it feels like they're playing it like they have more episodes coming. And whether it's they didn't announce Loki season 2 until literally the credits of season 1. So if that's the play, then I'm not mad at it. But it does feel like this show is gonna be in a vacuum chamber, and whether they said it's an anthology series and it'll be book of blah blah blah, or if it's book of season 2. But I'm kind of feeling the same way Damien's, just it seems like they are setting up something, but with just 3 episodes left, it's I hope that they don't try to cram everything and we don't get anything flushed out. But Jazz, what's your take on all these spinning webs and with the Pikes? Is it them, or is there are they being backed by another party?
It's really hard for me to say again, because it's like Damien said, it's hard to tell who's actually the bad guy in this. And when he was talking about that, I was thinking back to the X-Men. It's you're kind of, and this might be more of a thing about me, but originally you think Magneto's the bad guy, but you're sitting there and you learn more about him. He's he's not really actually the bad guy. I mean, I've always kind of been more of a Magneto person than Professor X, but anyway.
Oh, me too.
Slightly off topic there, but that was just kind of bringing that into just full circle for me. But I mean, it's just really hard. And I mean, I'm not a writing professional or anything like that, but it's just, I really don't know where this is going, and it's driving me crazy. And I think that's another reason why it's hard for me to get into as well. I mean, and I'll just say it again, I just want to see more Finnick badassery and maybe I know Joseph's going to hate me for saying this, but some lightsaber action play in here too.
I really hate that idea. I'm really happy that there's none so far. So
I like it.
I need a little bit more action. I'll just say that, because I actually really did enjoy the Boba.
More action would be nice. So I agree in general that we don't really have an idea who's at play here, what's going on, et cetera, but I do think that's on purpose. So the whole move, and it's not just the Star Wars and it's not just Book of Boba Fett, but it's been the Disney Plus play on their TV shows is experimentation. It's everything they have done since they've started doing these movie franchises as TV shows has been experimentation.
So here's my question, I guess, is this the Book of Boba Fett basically the Eternals of the Disney Plus TV shows?
How so? I what do you mean by that? I'm not trying to be crappy about it.
It's just kind of falling a little flat, I guess, not exceeding expectations.
Oh, you mean the execution of it kind of falling a little flat? Yeah. That's possible, and that could be possible. I think the Book of Boba Fett, the intent is they're trying to do a situational story with the Star Wars characters. Mm-hmm. Everything Star Wars is usually the battle between good and evil, and all this other stuff. Mandalorian was definitely stepping out, but it was like leaning more on the Western origin stuff. And while a little Westerny stuff is in Book of Boba Fett, including a bunch of other stuff, like I mentioned, there it feels like there's some Lawrence of Arabia kind of stuff. I think the biggest thing here is this is less of a man versus or a hero versus villain, and more versus hero versus the system, because that's the big thing. They talked about it in Return of the Jedi, or not Return of the Jedi, not Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi. They talked about in Last Jedi, it's there's this perpetual machine in the Star Wars universe of nothing ever changes. Wars happen because people profit off of wars, perpetuating the wars. And I think the big thing here is they're using an existing character that is traditionally a beloved character in the canon to show change in the Star Wars universe, because that's the big thing. When we got to the sequel series, it was the same thing. It's the Rebels versus the Empire. They're just named differently, and all sorts of stuff like that. So I think what we're getting with Book of Boba Fett, I think whether they're doing it successfully is your mileage may vary different kind of thing, but they're trying a story with no force, because as of right now we are 3 episodes in and there is no inkling of the force, not even a baby Grogu thing happening. There's no force, there's no Jedis, no lightsabers, no nothing like that. There's not even any Imperial presence or Republic presence for that matter on Tatooine.
And maybe that's what we need, is we need a Grogu. Maybe that's what we need here.
And I think
turns the tide of the show.
I think the whole reason Grogu was there was to be the Boba Fett of that series. And I use that example of he's not Yoda, but he's basically Yoda. The fact that as soon as he was introduced and we didn't know his name, everyone's like, it's Baby Yoda. Yeah. I mean, the Mandalorian was all about like, look at these things that you love. It's similar, but it's not the same. They're trying to take a beloved character and continue that story. And the only character they could do that's attached to the old movies that's not a Skywalker, and probably not too expensive to bring in for a regular play, is someone like Boba Fett. So I think that's what they're trying to go with. They're trying to grow a character that didn't really have much of a background. He was just, look how cool he is. Look at his rocket pack. Look at him die in the 3rd movie. But again, whether they're successful or not is your mileage may vary. And I think they're doing it successfully, just maybe not as successfully as they could, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. We are up against time, but Mike, I want to just get your take on this last topic, and then we'll just do like a rapid fire, just what your last predictions are. So just where are you at, just in terms of just like with the pipe kind of rising to arms because they heard you talking shit, and now do you think it's just them empowering themselves and tired of being like, the bitch boys of the Shadow Syndicate, for lack of a better word, or is there somebody like, are they the figurehead for somebody else?
So I think it was in our first panel that I said that the mayor was small beans, and I'm very quickly changing my tune. Joe and Jazz have clearly gotten to me. The influence is there.
Oh, I think he is small beans.
Oh, see, all the opinions are going in a circle.
But like, I'll get to it in a minute.
I was gonna say because I think I had already touched on it. So go ahead, hit your points, and then we'll finish this thing out.
I'm just going to say that there's a character that they had a fairly well-known actress play, Jennifer Beals, playing the head of that Twi'lek Din of Ill Repute. I think she's got more going on than anyone realizes. Like, I think she's manipulating the mayor. I think she's the one getting the Pikes in there. And I think it's kind of a missed communications where she's kind of doing it for the same reason, to burn down the systems, to make Tatooine a better place for the common man. And once they both figure it out, they're gonna be like, oh, well, crap.
Gotcha.
Well, let's see that. I think that would be a lot more interesting than what we've been getting.
Yeah.
All right. So just a recap of the web of lies that's going, and then we'll just kind of just bang out just our final predictions for the last 3 episodes. So we had the mayor tell Boba that he works for him, but then it was said that he worked for the twins. Then we had the twins saying that we want our cousin's spot. Then we had the twins saying we don't want a cousin spot. Then we had the Pikes paying money to the JL Taggers, and then we had the Pikes maybe empowering the JL Taggers to kill Boba's his religious family, and we had Boba taking over, and now it's just everybody's everywhere, and now the Pikes are back on the map. So with 3 episodes left, and again they keep teasing there's a major cameo that's supposed to come up in the show. Mike, I'll let you start off. Final predictions for what we got going on in the last 3 episodes.
Still think major cameo is going to be a bounty hunter. Gonna put my money. I'm going all in on Cat Bane.
Yeah, I'm rolling with you.
I don't know how it's going to play into the story, but that's how it's going.
I'm rolling with you, Damien. 3 more episodes left. What are you going with final predictions?
So I'm kind of curious just to see how this is going to go. I think almost every scene we've seen in the trailers has been revealed so far, other than meeting with the family. So there's still a lot to be revealed. And also, I think it's 4 more episodes, isn't it? Seven episodes. So
this was episode 3. All right, you're 4 more episodes.
But
got it.
So I think we're going to be in for some surprises, and I think it's going to pick up starting next week. But
fingers crossed.
I'll be really surprised if it's not, Crimson Dawn related. Even if that's saved until the last episode, it's going to pick up next week, and it's going to be bonkers.
Got it, Jazzy. 4 more episodes left. What do you think? Where do you think we're going with this?
I mean, like we've said, every time we think something's going to happen, something kind of turns around and it flips. I really have no idea what's going to happen. There's been a lot of great predictions talked about in this panel. And what I have to say, I really like what Joseph had to say about, oh God, I can't think of it now. Great. But how it was, I'm totally blanking now. Let's just say I'm gonna be on the Finnick wagon. So
gotcha. And then Joe, what do you think we got coming to end this show off of 4 more episodes left?
So I'm unsure if the Crimson Dawn are going to be a thing, but they are pulling a lot of other lore from existing stuff that has been in question whether it's canon again. Again, when they started doing Rebels, they brought in the Admiral Thrawn. They brought Thrawn back.
Admiral Thrawn.
Which was from Legends originally, which Disney's like not canon anymore, but then they're pulling certain things to be canon again. The High Republic is a thing in the comics and all sorts of stuff like that. So I don't necessarily think it's the Crimson Dawn, but someone is empowering the Pike Syndicate, and my personal guess is it's the Black Sun, which would be interesting and I would love, because what we're missing in this whole current Star Wars canon is more of your Han Solo-esque character. So a return of Dash Rendar would be kind of cool. That's just me though. That's just me.
I'm rolling.
Dash Rendar, hopefully played by Bruce Campbell.
There you go. They in the chats, they do love the Cyber Teenage Punk Rangers. They are thumbs up in that name. So booking it, we're trademarking it. Disney, come get us, like we always say. But that was episode 3. We are out against it. I'm going 3 for 3 with not having us go to like 10:45 as I usually do. We're making it happen. But that was episode 3 of Book of Boba Fett. We will be back again next week. Damien, it was such a pleasure. We would love to have you back next episode if you can be here. All my beautiful peeps, my nerve herders, let the people know what you got going on. Mikey, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me right here next week on Fandom Spotlight. And you can follow me and my artwork on Instagram at Mikey_the_illest. And pass on to Joe. Take it over.
Me? Okay.
Sure.
You can find me on Twitter where I'm at the Spice Must Joe. And of course you can find me on LinkedIn because I have to bring it up. Additionally, I occasionally write things on Fandom Spotlight. I haven't all year, even though we're 13 days into it. But I need to get back to it. I have some ideas. I need to write things, but life is rough. You guys know how it is. Additionally, you can find me on the Rollmongers podcast, where I've been playing in their Pathfinder 2nd Edition game on Wednesday nights. Hopefully doing other stuff with them again too. So lovely.
Jazzy, tell the people what you got going on, dear.
So there's nothing really going on over here because everybody's taking, the Rona very seriously. So everything's just kind of at a stop point. But you can find me over at Fandom Spotlight right now. I'm writing a few things, unlike Mr. Joseph. And you can find me at Rose City Widow on Instagram, and check out Vancouver Master Chorale and the Honeybee Sing. They have Instagram and Facebook, so check those out.
Wonderful, wonderful. And our very special guest, Mr. Damien Dennis. Let the people know where they can find you and what you got going on.
Got nothing going on. I'm in grad school trying to get out of journalism. So
that's a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
See, I'm trying to get into it.
We'll talk after this. But you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, pretty much anywhere. My username is at DJ Dennis OU. Yeah, I ain't got nothing going on other than usually talking about sports or Star Wars. So
that works. That sounds like the life to me. And I have been your residential Jedi Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Matthew Porter. You can find me at Matthew Porter on Facebook, on _menace2 sobriety on Instagram. Do not spell out the 2. It is just the number. And then, yeah, you can also find me here on Fandom Spotlight doing these things because I like to hear myself talk. So they let me do it. And what else do I be doing? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. But in darkest day and brightest light, always remember to follow that Fandom Spotlight. Oh yeah, I said I'm gonna clap.